Namaskar, Satyameva Jayate. So, welcome to the expert lecture series of forensic science criminal profiling. So far, till my last lecture, I have discussed about the brief of criminal profiling, about the overview of criminal profiling. Let's now study about the type of criminal profiling. So till my last class I have been teaching you all about the basics of it. I will get into deep down into the study of criminal profiling. So there are two types of criminal profiling which has been used to profile a criminal. One is deductive profiling, another is inductive profiling. Let's study about the deductive profiling. The behavioral evidence analysis is specific criminal crime scene and victims exclusively for forensic evidence relating to the crime scene and victims of that offender alone. The body of a female victim is found nude in a forest location with 4 shallow, careful inclusions on the chest, cutting across the internal part. The victim's genitals areas have all been removed with a sharp instrument, and there are evidences in the eyes, neck, face, above pattern compression on the neck. No blood is found at the crime scene. No clothes are found at the crime scene. The victim bears ligature furrows around her wrist with abraded conclusions. Okay, but no ligature is present. Fresh tire impressions are found in the mud approximately 20 yards from where the body is located. This was an example with a logic. Therefore, the offender in the particular offense bound the victim to restrain her while she was little alive, indicated by the abrasions around the wrist associated with struggling. She might be struggling before the death. Our offender removed the ligature before disposing the body, indicated by the fact that we didn't find it at the scene. The victim was likely, with a type of material ligature around the neck, indicated by the pattern compression with something. The location of the body was found is a disposal site and not the actual location of the offense, indicated by the fact that no blood was present at the location. The offender has a vehicle consistent with the tire impression and its mobile phone. All these details together indicate a competent, intelligent offender whom is likely able to sustain employment and is very likely a sexual sadist. This is deductively suggested by a vehicle, the use of the secondary scene to dispose of the body, to avoid transfer evidences, the removal of the victim's genitals, and the deliberate cutting down of the victim's nipples intended to cause pain but not seriously injure. The data used to interfere a deductive criminal profiling for a particular criminal includes the following. Number 1. Forensic evidence. A full equivocal forensic analysis must be performed before profiling can begin. To ensure the integrity of the behavior and the crime scene characteristics that are to be analyzed, nothing can be assumed by the profiler. Number 2, crime scene characteristics. Crime scene characteristics are determined from all forensic reports, all forensic analysis, and all forensic documentation which provide the nature of the interaction between the victims, the offender, and the location of the offense during the occasion of a specific offense. In cases involving a related series of offenses, such as in the serial rape or serial homicide, crime scene characteristics are determined individually and analyzes as they evolve or fail to evolve over time. An offender's crime scene characteristics in a single offense or over multiple offenses can lend themselves to interfaces about offender motive, modus operandi, and the determination of the crime scene signature. Number 3 is victimology. Victimology is a detailed study and analysis of victims' characteristics. The characteristics of an individual's offender victim population of choice in a single offense or over time can lend themselves to deductive inferences about offenders' motive, modus operandi, and the determination of the crime scene signature. In deductive profiling, almost as much time is spent profiling each victim as the offender responsible for the crime. The advantage of the deductive criminal profiling model are very important. This model requires specialized education and training in forensic science, crime scene reconstruction, the wound pattern analysis, because of the requisite specialized knowledge. Deductive criminal profiles tend to be more specific than inductive criminal profiling, assisting greatly in the major goal of the profiling process, which is to move from a universal set of suspect characteristics to a more unique set of suspect characteristics. Deductive criminal profiling is also useful for thoroughly establishing modus operandi behavior as well as offender signature behavior, which assists in the linkage of seemingly unrelated crimes. According to Joubert, the modus operandi or the MO behavior or method of operation is a dynamic, learned behavior changing over time. As the offender becomes more experienced, it involves only those actions that are necessary to commit the offense. Signature behavior or the signature aspect of criminal behavior, as per Joubert, defines it. It is comprised of those behaviors are not required to commit the offense. Signature is comprised of significant personality identifiers that distinguish the nature of the offender's crime scene methodology. This significant and highly individualized personality identifiers are evident in such things are: 1. When an offender repeatedly engaged in a specific order of sexual activity. Number 2, when an offender repeatedly uses a specific type of binding. When an offender inflicts similar types of inquiries to different victims. When an offender displays the body in a certain manner to shock value. When an offender tortures or mutilates his victim and or engages in some other form of specific ritualistic behavior. Another very tangible advantage of deductive criminal method is that because it is so thoroughly explores victimology and the nature of the interaction between the victims and the crime scene and the offender, it is very pointedly demonstrate as individual offenders' motivations in even the most bizarre or seemingly senseless offenses, as Joubert insightfully reminds us in his foundational work, Practical Homicide Investigation. No one acts without motivation. Deductive criminal profile techniques explore offender action through the physical evidence, through the victimology, and through the crime scene as the primary behavior and motivational documentation, and illuminate that particular offender's motivation. The whole profiling is logic statement based solidly on the arguments made through an analysis of behavior patterns. Also, due to the same thoroughness, learned or experimental generalization can be kept from observing and misleading investigation. Investigators with a lot of years on the job and a lot of experience investigating a particular type of crime tend to formulate theories about a case early on. Instead of investigating the case, they may instead spend their effort attempting to prove a theory. Deductive criminal profiling precludes theory generation and subsequent bruised egos until a full investigative analysis has been done. Now, let's talk about inductive criminal profiling. So, a set of behavioral indicators forming a very characteristic pattern of action or emotion that tend to point a particular condition. And inductive criminal profiling is one that is generalized to an individual criminal from initial behavioral and demographic characteristics shared by other criminals who have been studied in the past. It is the product of incomplete statistical analysis and penalization very often without comparison to normal. Hence, the descriptor is inductive. The data sets currently used to compile and statistically generalize inductive criminal profiling are collected largely from three sources: formal and informal studies of known inaccurate criminal population, and the inherent clinical and non-clinical interviews upon which those studies are based. Practical experiences from which isolated anecdotal data is recalled by a profiler. Public data sources, including the popular media, for example, the FBI, readily admits that newspaper articles are collected by its personnel and used to fill out its computerized database of violent criminal offender activity in the United States. Let's talk about some logical criminal profiling. Okay. Suppose 80% of known serial killers that attack college students in parking lots are white male aged 20 to 35 who live with their mother and drive Volkswagen Bugs. Again, there is an objection from my end. Our offender has attacked at least 3 male college students on separate occasions. Our offender has attacked all 3 victims on the parking lot. Therefore, our offender, who is a part of a large group who fit this profile called serial killers, is a white male aged 20 to 35, lives with his mother and drives a Volkswagen Bug. So completely disagree with this logic. Okay. Let's talk the how can we say that this is an art. This is an art of profiling. The art of criminal profiling. Behavioral science, that is criminal profiling, is establishing growing popularity among the field of crime scene investigation and evidence. Russell Vorpagel states criminal profiling as a study and interpretation of the actions of no actions in the crime scene. It is recreating what happened or didn't happen at the crime scene. It is the art of putting yourself in the eyes of an offender and simply asking why. From this, one figure out who. This essay will outline how behavioral science has assisted with investigative techniques in solving crime. The development of criminal profiling, although in today's modern world, where suspect can be easily traced with advanced technology, the method of criminal profiling is significant techniques that can be notably traced back to the work done in the later part of the century, but even possibly before 2004. The specialized development of the profiling over the past several decades will mostly likely to be attributed to the work of the Behavioral Science Unit, BSU, at the FBI Academy, Quantico, Virginia. Such prominent names from the unit involves those of John Douglas, Robert Resser, and Roy Hazelwood, amongst other. Patrick, 2004. The unit has compiled several of criminal profiling with astonishingly great accuracy. Criminal profiling can even have the capability of figuring out what type and make of a car a certain suspect drove. The field of criminal profiling draws its purpose from the notion, and in order to understand the criminal, you must look at the nature of the crime. What makes the criminal profile unique from the investigative techniques is that such factors are trace evidence, which in today's world have a great emphasis on because of the advanced technology is irrelevant. In fact, there was one case where a standoff hair of a victim proved to be useless piece of the evidence that ended up pointing accusations to wrong people. Sometimes what you see are not the actual. Okay. Now, we will go to a different segment of criminal profiling, of course. I will draw my conclusion afterwards. Let's talk a bit about forensic psychology, how it works. Forensic psychology is devoted to psychological aspect of legal process in courts. The term is also often used to refer investigative and criminological psychology. Applying psychological theory to criminal investigation, understanding psychological problems associated with criminal behavior, in the treatment of the criminals, key tasks undertaken by forensic psychologists, including piloting and implementing and treatment programs, modifying offender behavior, responding to the changing needs of the staff and prisoners, reducing stress from staff and prisoners, providing hard research evidence to support practice, undertaking statistical analysis for prisoner profiling, giving evidence in court, advertising parole board and mental health tribunals, crime analysis. Forensic psychology is the interface between psychology and the law. So all psychological services provided for the legal community are forensic psychological services. However, most forensic psychologists provide services which are both clinical and forensic in nature. When a psychologist treats an individual who was emotionally traumatized by an accident, the treatment is clinical in nature, designed to assist the individual in discovering from the trauma. But when a psychologist is asked to provide a report to the court regarding the extent of the trauma and to assess the psychological damage incurred when the psychologist is providing forensic services. Typically, forensic psychology is defined as the intersection of psychology and the law. But forensic psychologists can perform many roles, so as to the definition can vary. In many cases, people working with forensic psychology are not necessarily forensic psychologists. This individual might be clinical psychologist, school psychologist, neurologist, or counselors who lend their psychological expertise to provide testimony, analysis, or recommendation in legal and criminal cases. For example, a criminal psychologist might provide mental health services such as assessment, diagnosis, and treatment to individuals who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. Clinicians might be asked to determine if a suspected criminal suffers from a mental illness, or may be asked to provide treatment to individuals suffering from substance abuse and addiction issues. Another example is the school psychologist. Now, some of the functions typically performed by forensic psychologists include competency evaluations, sentencing recommendation, evaluation of the risk of reoffending, testimony as an expert witness, child custody evaluation. Okay, forensic psychology is the application of psychology to the criminal and civil justice system. Many people confuse forensic psychology and forensic science, although the two are closely related, but there are many differences. The primary difference is that while forensic scientists are in the business of applying the chemical and biological sciences to law enforcement, national security, defense, or intelligence work, forensic psychologists develop into psychological perspectives of human behavior and apply them to the legal system. Forensic psychology knowledge is used in various forms, such as treating mentally ill offenders, consulting with attorneys, or example, unpicking a jury, analyzing a criminal's mind and intent, and practicing within the civil arena. A forensic psychologist may also choose to solely focus her career on research ranging anywhere from the examination of eyewitness testimony to learning how to improve interrogation methods. Another form of forensic psychology work in the public policy, where researchers can help in the design of correctional facilities and prisons. Breadth of forensic psychology. Forensic psychology is a very new and existing area. It seems exciting because of immense range of application. For example, child custody decisions, child abuse of an emotional, physical, and sexual nature, matters of competency to stand trial, victim support responsibilities, jury selection, then evaluating police burnout, competency evaluations, expert witness, advising legislators on public policy, treatment of chronic offenders. What does a forensic psychologist do? Suppose I'm a forensic psychologist, and what are my job responsibility being a forensic psychologist? A forensic psychologist is more likely to be indulged into following activities: applying psychological theory to criminal investigation, understanding psychological problem associated with criminal behavior, the treatment of criminals, including piloting, implementing treatment programs, modifying offender behaviors, responding to the changing needs of staffs and prisoners, reducing stress for staffs and prisoners, providing hard research evidence to support practice, undertaking statistical analysis for prisoner profiling, giving evidences in court, advertising parole boards or mental health tribunals, crime analysis. Thank you so much for your time, and this is me, Cherry. I'm a forensic expert, and please let me know, guys, if you have any question on this particular domain or about any activities or any doubt you want to clear out. Okay, just comment below down, and definitely I'll try to bring back the solution. Till then, have a great day ahead. Follow the law, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Satyameva Jayate.